Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another rousing discussion of butt fuckery. This is the Brodie and Richard show featuring yours truly, Brodie, and that other guy, Richard. Hey, Richard, what's up?
Hi, everybody. I've got to tell you, I was just trying to make cookies on my George Foreman grill. God damn it. That's too funny, man. That's just...
You guys, once you guys hear this, when this drops, the episode of Live, I'm assuming will have been out by that point.
Yeah, the episode of Live goes up before this, because this is a late night Saturday show.
Okay, so once you guys, if you guys have listened to Live, which I'm assuming you have, you'll understand why that's so fucking funny.
Oh my God. This is gonna be a fun show.
It is. How have you been, my friend? How are you doing?
I lost my voice. I was sick. I had the poops. Let me tell you something. When you get sick, toilet paper becomes your worst enemy.
It does, because you're either like I love my wife. I love her very much, but she doesn't buy the softest toilet paper.
Does she buy John Wayne tissue?
I might as well be wiping my ass with sandpaper.
I've decided to change up. I can't believe this is how we're starting this. Oh well. There are times that I went, my wife tends to buy soft toilet paper. We stick to the Charmin realm of toilet papers. Like, okay. Even if it's an off-brand, it's still going to be equivalent to Charmin.
That makes sense. Charmin's good.
I have decided to completely change my game and go nothing but wet wipes. I feel like I'm 6.
I thought you were going to say, I've decided to change my game and come just wipe my ass with my hand.
No, that did happen at one. Oh, no. So she works at a nursing home. Ashley works at a nursing home, for anybody who doesn't know, at times. And she will bring home rubber glove after rubber glove after rubber glove. And I went, if we ever run out of toilet paper, we have got backup.
Rubber baby buggy bumpers, baby buggy bumpers.
They're rubber gloves. Like, you would think we were just giving random prostates in our house, because there's just rubber gloves showing up in every orifice. Like, there's rubber gloves in the bathroom. There's rubber gloves in the bedroom. There's rubber gloves in the printer.
Welcome to the Pruitt household. Yes. Come for the jokes and the food and stay for the prostate exam.
That's very true. You're going to be playing Mario Kart? What the hell are you doing?
I'm having another burrito. I'm addicted.
Wait, are they the oh crap, what's the brand that does all the frozen burritos?
Casa Bonita?
No, the Casa Bonita, the fucking restaurant that has all the cool shit.
No, you're right. That's the South Park restaurant. Oh, hold on.
That's a real restaurant. By the way, that's a real restaurant.
Casa Mamita.
Oh, I've never even heard of these. These aren't even... El Monterey's the brand that everybody knows here, I think.
No, I mean, we have El Monterey up here, but this is just like, they're just bean and cheese burritos. They're actually pretty good. Frozen burritos.
Couldn't even get ones with beef.
No, because I'm not a spring chicken. My stomach can only handle so much punishment in a day.
I have nothing. Why are we talking stomach jokes? I don't know.
So Brodie and Richard show. This show is dedicated to, we'll take one topic and we'll kind of deep dive, whereas in Live we kind of go all over the place. Here we kind of pick one topic and we kind of just discuss that.
Wasn't today's topic supposed to be Marvel, and then we were like, nope, we're going to save that for a little bit later.
We're going to save that because Avengers is still a couple weeks out. So this week we were kind of struggling with what to decide to talk about. Like we had
it wasn't okay. So isn't a struggle? It's because I never watch it. There's where the problem lies.
Well, we were discussing, and we decided. I wanted to talk about Game of Thrones because I'm a big Game of Thrones fan. The final season starts this Sunday,
and I wanted to talk about the new black hole.
And he wanted to talk about the black hole.
Have you seen the photos of that, by the way?
I have seen photos.
That's the eye of the dragon from Game of Thrones. Sorry.
I thought, when I first saw that, I was thinking the Eye of Sauron.
That too.
But so we were I wanted to talk about Game of Thrones because I figured that's big right now. Everybody is talking about Game of Thrones. So why don't we get in on the Game of Thrones? And then I know you had said that you weren't a fan, and you didn't like the show, or you haven't watched it. Go ahead and send all
your hate mail to richardpruitt@tbkmagazine.com. I will respond with gifts of just dancing babies.
So then we came up with a brilliant idea to kind of split it up. Like we said, normally we take one topic and discuss it, but this week we're going to take two topics.
And they are so polar opposites of each other.
They're very polar opposites. We're going to do a Game of Thrones. We're going to kind of talk about some Game of Thrones stuff. And then we're going to talk about WrestleMania 35, because after many years of me not having watched wrestling, I had come out of work one night and my phone was blowing up with news about WrestleMania.
Me? Was it because of me?
No, just like Google. Like I have Google news notifications set up on my phone, and they were just blowing up like Kofi Kingston and the women's title match, it was just notification after notification. So I said, fuck it, I'll watch it, and I watched it. And it was entertaining. I mean, I'm lost because I really don't recognize most of these wrestlers, but it was entertaining. But I think what we'll do is we'll probably start with Game of Thrones, and I think the reason why we're going to split it up is because I know when we talk about Game of Thrones, it'll probably largely be me piloting that conversation, and then when we switch over to WrestleMania,
it'll be both of us, but I'll be more. I'm going to try to chime in with Game of Thrones thoughts.
It'll be more reactionary for you.
It's pretty much my life story.
And then once we get to WrestleMania, even though I watched it, I feel like the
can help you out.
Kind of switch.
I'll help you out. I'll help you understand some things.
But Game of Thrones, final season coming out, starts this Sunday. I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's arguably one of, if not the biggest shows on TV right now.
Oh, it is the biggest show on television. There's nothing close to it. Like, you could say The Walking Dead, but that show went downhill.
The Walking Dead used to be, but it's dipped. The Walking Dead has dipped so sharply in quality over the last couple of years.
I don't think there's a show close to this on television.
Oh, absolutely not. Like, I'm really interested, like, once Game of Thrones ends, like, there's going to be this kind of vacuum, if you will, like, what's going to step up next? What's going to be the next big thing that just, because, like, this...
American Gods, I'll call it now. I think the next show that kind of goes off on...
But I don't know, because American Gods is awesome.
I don't care for it either.
Yeah, that's just a nice... Man, it's just... I was trying to be nice, but yeah, I'm not like...
Ashley loves it, but I know that show's got some traction right now.
It does. I think it's getting the kind of traction that Game of Thrones started to get in its earlier season. So
I don't remember Game of Thrones being a hit in its first season.
What's that?
I don't remember Game of Thrones taking off.
Well, a little bit of info background with my history of the show. I've only read the first two books. I'm in the process of trying to read the third book, but it's
nerd.
For anyone who's read the Game of Thrones books, they're extremely difficult reads. Like, usually when you read a book, it's told from like kind of a, I guess you would say, third person. Most fictional stories are told from like a third person perspective, kind of. But Game of Thrones is written in this really odd style where each chapter is told from the POV perspective of whatever character. So like, say, Jon Snow, like a whole chapter will be from his perspective and the way he's seeing events unfold. And then the next chapter will be Jaime Lannister, and then the next chapter will be like, each chapter is written from the POV perspective of whatever character that chapter is based on. Which it's not hard, but it makes the narrative confusing sometimes because there's a lot of time jump fuckery. Like maybe Jon's chapter takes place before Cersei's chapter, or vice versa. So it's an interesting narrative to work with, and I can understand how it's hard for people to read those books.
The books are difficult.
The books are very difficult because
George R.R. Tolkien. Yeah, I know. I got his name wrong. George R.R. Tolkien is pretty much just killing those books. Like, fuck.
But the other thing about, they're so dense, Richard. Like, it is.
Oh, they are.
Each book is like 1,000. It's got to be close to 1,000 pages.
No, it's like reading the Bible. Like, sometimes you're just like, what's happening? And finally it all comes together, but it takes a while to come together.
It took me, like, I like to consider myself a fast reader. Like, when I get into a book that I really enjoy, like, it takes me no time at all to put it down. But I enjoy these books. I very much enjoy these books. But they're so, like, hard because, like, that's the kind of book that you have to, like, sit down and not have any distractions while you're reading. Like, turn the TV off, like, kind of just sit in a corner and read the book. Because if you're, like, not dedicated 110% to reading that book, you're gonna lose yourself in the story, because so much happens in those books, or at least in the ones that I've read up to. I can't really comment on the ones that I haven't read. So when I got into the show, I didn't read the books until after I had gotten into the show. And another thing about that is I didn't get into the show right off the bat. Like, I didn't start watching Game of Thrones until after the second season had aired. Like, I have this kind of, and I'm sure you could agree with me, I have this kind of aversion to shows where everyone's recommending that I watch.
I get this.
If everyone and their mothers is pushing me to watch a show, I usually
end up hating it, and then you end up hating it.
Well, it's not that I end up hating it. I just don't jump on it right away. Like, I kind of just let it run its course, and then I come back to it when I want to come back to it. Like, perfect example, Sons of Anarchy.
I love that show. I didn't watch it while it ran, though.
I wasn't into it initially, and I actually didn't get into it until like the 4th or 5th season, because everyone and their mothers was talking about how awesome the show is. I'm like, there's no way the hype can live up to it. So I just didn't get into it. Then one day I just kind of turned it on, and I'm like, holy shit, this is kind of good. And then I just fell into it. So that's
now he has assless chaps, and he's part of a moped gang called Trace Huevos. I got you.
Trace Huevos. So I got it's kind of similarly how I got into Game of Thrones. Like, I pushed back against it, and I'm not a big fantasy guy, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm more science fiction. I've always liked science fiction. I've never been the fantasy guy, but I got into Game of Thrones, and season 3, like, I watched season 3 live. I went back and watched the first 2 seasons before season 3 came out, and I've been kind of a fan of it ever since. And it's really, honestly, Richard, like, I cannot stress this enough. It is unlike anything on TV I've ever seen.
There's a lot of sex.
Well, it's not. There's a lot of nudity, and it's not even necessarily female nudity. There's a lot of dong. Like, a lot of dudes are just hanging brain throughout the show.
I gotta ask Amy if I can play her song at some point, because she, one of the writers on the site, Amy, I can't think of her last name now. I'm a terrible. Amy Albert. I'm a terrible person. I have not slept. I'm wiry. I don't understand how this has happened in life, but here I am. She has a song on YouTube where she makes fun of Game of Thrones and calls it Game of Bones. Yeah, that's really not out of the realm of possibility, because a lot of the first couple of seasons of the show, like largely the first 3 seasons, there's just dudes are banging each other, chicks are banging each other. Like, it's just like a fucking orgy. No, that pretty much sums it up. Yeah.
I mean, thankfully, once you get, and I chalk that up to like the show still trying to. It's not. I don't want to say this as an excuse, but I feel like the show is trying to find its identity in those formative years. Like, once you get to the 4th season, and the plot, like the plot as we know it now, starts to kind of take shape. I mean, the violence is still very prevalent. It's still a very violent show, but a lot of that nudity and sex and things of that nature kind of start not appearing in the show as much, to the point where, like, I don't even think there was any nudity in all of season 7 or 6.
Well, I'm out. I'm done. Fuck it. We're over. Like, if I cannot see Jason Momoa's dong, I'm out.
You don't even see Jason Momoa's donger.
Well, that's not cool. That's the only reason I would be watching.
But I have been for the last couple of weeks. I know we talked a little about this off air. Just deep diving into every possible like avenue of Game of Thrones material I can get my hands on. Like, there's tons of like analyzed videos like that are kind of like analyzing the trailers and past seasons to kind of predict what's going to happen this season. You know, I get lost on Reddit, you know, with their fan theories and stuff.
Reddit's a deep hole, man. Reddit's a deep hole.
It's a fucking, to tie it back to what we were talking about, a black hole.
Oh, understand. Maybe that's what the picture's of. It's just of all the subreddits.
It's just a physical representation of Reddit. I really kind of got soured on the whole fan theory community after The Last Jedi, when people were like up in arms about that movie not giving into any of their fan theories. But this show, just, there's something about it that I just want to like talk to people about. I just want to hear their takes and their theories. Like, there's this podcast that I listen to called Oysters, Clams, and Cockles, and they started. It's called Oysters, Clams, and Cockles.
Is it like the history of Rhode Island? What is this show?
Well, no, there's like in the fourth, I think it's the fourth or fifth season. Aria, one of the characters on the show.
I'm glad you specified that it's just the character on the show, who's played by Massey Williams. No, I know who this is.
I don't know how much you've been exposed to this show.
I love the cast. I get some names confused, but she is one of the people that I got. Like I started watching because of her.
Well, Maisie Williams' character, Aria, goes through this storyline in the fourth and kind of, I guess, the fifth season where she travels to this island called Essos. I might get that wrong. Fans chew me up. I don't give a shit. And she trains to be what in the show they refer to as a faceless man. They're like assassins that can take on the faces of other people to kind of remain invisible to the world at large. And I totally forgot where I was going with this.
Podcast about clam bakes.
So like in one of there you go. So there's a line like when she's training to be this faceless assassin, one of her first assignments is to go into like the town square area and kind of like spy on people. And her cover is she sells, oysters and clams to like people on the dockyards and everything. So she goes around yelling, oysters, clams, and cockles, like, kind of announcing what she's selling. So the podcast that I listen to is called Oysters, Clams, and Cockles, and their intro song is like this like trap house, like techno beat song to her singing oysters, clams, and cockles. It's the funniest thing. But I'm just like, I'm deep diving into all of these theories and these things, and I know I shouldn't be, because I know at the end of the day, the show is going to be what it's going to be regardless of the theories, but I'm just so excited for this premiere on Sunday. I'm almost as, if not even a little more excited for this than I am for Endgame. Almost.
But you're not, so there's that.
No, I'm not. But it's just, I haven't been this invested in a TV show in a very long time. Like I was talking to somebody earlier, like the last time I got this excited about a TV show coming back was when the X-Files came back a few years ago and did their first
Shut the hell
season.
Up. No, it's not.
Sorry, Twin Peaks.
I was going to say, it's Twin Peaks, you nutfucker. Hey, come on.
Twin Peaks.
You were all about some Twin Peaks when it came back.
Man. I got the coffee mug. I got all the pop figures. Like, I am a Twin Peaks fanatic. So, so much so, Richard, that like I was at work last night, going back to Game of Thrones, and they're doing all these cool product placements, which is a question I want to ask you once I get done. Oh God,
here we go. This is Oreo related, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
So like I'm on not Facebook. I'm on some kind of internet, like Google or something.
You're on Friendster, catcha.
Friendster, yeah, Friendster. No, I'm back on MySpace, and there's this article that is kind of detailing all the sort of cross promotional tie-ins that people are doing with this Game of Thrones being at the final season. And so, like, there's one where there's this Mountain Dew can coming out,
which is awesome.
Which, when you chill it, like if it's just normal, it's just like a normal blank can. But once it becomes chilled, like Arya's kill list of all the people she wants to kill, it shows up on the can, which is just like the coolest thing ever. And then Oreo did like a promotion where it's just like the normal Oreos, like the Oreos themselves are not different, but into the cookie are carved 4 different house sigils. There's one for House Stark, there's one for House Lannister, there's one for House Targaryen, and then there's one for the Night King, which is
are these Harry Potter houses for virgins?
What's that?
Nothing. I'm gonna get hate mail for that one.
So the question I want to ask you: how do you feel about cross promotions and like the sort of, I guess you could say, like monetizing of fandom culture and things that are popular in fandom?
First of all, if Oreo's tagline isn't "diabetes is coming," I don't know if they're missing out on an opportunity.
Well, I'm looking at the package right now because I bought 3 packages of them.
Nerd.
Yeah. It's just like it says Oreo in the Game of Thrones like font, and then there's a picture of the Oreo cookie sitting on the Iron Throne.
I got nothing. It reminds me of that episode of Parks and Rec where Leslie buys Ben the throne.
Yeah, the Iron Throne. I remember that.
And
episode.
he just freaks out and everything. That's exactly how okay, so product placement's great. However, I will say that Mountain Dew can might be one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Right? Like I tried, like it's not going to be available in stores. You have to kind of, because it's such a limited edition thing, you kind of have to.
Oh, no one's going to drink those. Come on.
No, they're making you like email them, like, you know, you have to hashtag it, and then you got to tell them like what you would, you know, kill, like you have to go through this whole rigmarole, and even then you're not guaranteed to get one. So I emailed them and I kind of signed up for it, but I don't anticipate.
It's like the Szechuan sauce from Rick and Morty that McDonald's brought back, and only they had like 8 at every McDonald's, and Rick and Morty fans threw a fit.
But and then like today, I saw something on Facebook. Brian Cogman, who's one of the writers on the show, who's, I think besides Benioff and Weiss, who are the showrunners, is the only guy who's been involved with the show since the very first season. That's still involved with the show
and has not been killed. Gotcha.
Has not been killed. He released a state, or like they did an article with him where he details like the 21 episodes fans should watch before Sunday when the new season starts.
I have an opinion about that. It's not actually favorable. I think it's a cool idea, but if you get new fans, I feel there's going to be a lot of people who's going to try to watch this show, like to get into it because they want to be able to talk about it with their friends and shit.
Absolutely, especially with it being like the final season. And
I'm going to be like, what, they sank on the Titanic? So I feel that actually kind of kicks new fans in the dick because that's all they're going to watch before the new season.
Well, I mean, there's plenty of things like I like you're not gonna, if you're gonna rewatch the show, you would have done it by now, especially with only like 4 or 5 days to go before it comes.
You're not a true binge watcher unless you do it in 3.
Right. Like I recently did a rewatch of all 7 seasons front to back, like last month, and I did it all in a week. Like I basically, because the episodes are only 10 episodes a season, but they're like
an hour
over. Over an hour. They're like 60 plus minutes an episode. So that's like a whole day gone each day. So thank God I work an overnight job where I can just sit on the couch and, hey, baby, you want to watch some Game of Thrones? And she's sitting there and she's clapping and she's laughing as someone's getting a sword right through the mouth.
You're actually talking about your baby and not your wife, right? Because I can see. No, okay. Just making, because I mean, if she does clap with people getting a head, it's whatever. But I mean, no judging.
No, if my wife starts clapping every time someone gets skewered like a barbecue, I should probably be a little worried.
People get rotisserie in Game of Thrones. Good to know.
But it's like, it's just this. I watched the whole thing and I recognize that it's ridiculous that I watched 7 seasons worth of this show in a week. But there's just something about it that is. It's so imaginative. Like I said, I'm not a big fantasy guy, but the thing that I like about it is when the show first, like the first 3 seasons actually, what hooks you into it is it's less about the fantasy of it, like the dragon and the magic and all that shit. It's more about the politics, like the politics of that era of time, which is actually a nice hook because like the fantasy aspects are still there, but they deal more in the politics of running a kingdom like that and so on and so forth.
So can I say something?
Go for it.
If you're a fan of Game of Thrones and you fucking complain about the first Star Wars prequel, you can sit down and shut the fuck up.
What is that? I don't get that reference.
Politics.
Oh.
What's the biggest... Yeah, because I mean, those prequels are complaint... Like, one of the biggest complaints about the prequels is the politics of them.
But the complaint that people have is that there's not a lot of action. Like all they do is talking. There's still some action to be had. But anyway, I agree with you. It's just interesting because they market this show as this big like fantasy epic, and it's kind of more or less about politics. It's like a day soap opera version of Lord of the Rings, and that's cheapening it. It really is. Like it's not doing justice.
At least I didn't
to
fall asleep during Game of Thrones.
What's up?
I said at least I didn't fall asleep during Game of Thrones.
True.
Because I did during the Hobbit movies. I was out.
That's different because like you're taking one book and you're stretching it across 3 movies, whereas you're taking this many seasons and you're stretching it across the books. Now the interesting thing about Game of Thrones is good that you said that, and I'm sure you're aware of this, and most of the people are aware of. It's off book now, so like the first 5 seasons, more or less follow the pattern of the first 5 books. Like I cannot stress enough. At least up until the point that I've read the actual books.
I was going to say, have the books actually finished? Is George R. R. Martin still doing those?
There's still supposed to be 2 more books coming. Which the last book came out in 2011, I believe.
Yeah, because it takes him for fucking ever to write a book.
Well, and it's not even necessarily that, but he's doing other stuff too, so he's kind of distracted. My theory is that he's just waiting for the show to end. And then he could put his books out there as a kind of alternate take on what the show does. Because the show, while it follows the general outline of the story that he's laid out, because you know he serves as a producer on the show as well, there's a lot of things that are different. There's like characters on the show.
Well, that's what they did with True Blood too. And HBO is good about that. Like they'll take the book series and they'll still take kind of true to the book series, but they'll also completely change it.
Like, that's what they did with this show. Like, they stayed true to the story, and they're largely telling the story as it happens in the books, but what they're doing is they're changing, like, the minutia and the smaller details. Now, there are a few big things that happen in the book that they haven't included in the show that, like, fans have been clamoring. Like, the biggest one, I feel like, is Lady Stoneheart. And what Lady Stoneheart is, in the 3rd season, the 9th episode of the 3rd season, which is almost infamously referred to as the Red Wedding episode.
I've actually seen that episode out of context.
It's a fucked up episode to watch out of context. It's even more fucked up in context, having like spent time with the characters. But in the Red Wedding episode, if spoilers for those who haven't watched it, well, it's kind of on you at this point if you haven't watched it. You know, a lot of the main heroes of the story are the Stark family. They're kind of like the good guy family of this whole Song of Ice and Fire saga. And at the end of the 1st season, Ned Stark, who is the father and who is set up as the main character, gets his head cut off. So you're like, holy shit, the main character's dead and the season's not even over yet. So immediately there's this sense of danger, like they're playing with their main characters in a way like nobody is safe. And then you get to the 3rd season, which features the title of the episodes is The Reigns of Castamere, but everyone refers to it as the Red Wedding episode, where Ned's wife, Catelyn, watches as her son gets stabbed to death by one of their bannermen, you know, people who are loyal to their house, while he watches his pregnant wife get stabbed to death in the stomach. It is one of the most brutal hours of television I've ever watched in my life. Like, after I watched that episode, I had to put down Game of Thrones for a few weeks. Like, it shook me to see something like that.
You were shook.
I was shook. So it's like, this show holds it's no holds barred in terms of like the places they're willing to go to tell the story they want to tell.
When does Tony show up? I had to.
Anyway, thanks for coming today, folks. It's been a good show.
I had to. It was there. I had to run.
I know. It was an alley-oop. I'll give you that.
You know, it's more of
the mom, one of her sons, and her son's husband or her son's wife are all just murdered. And I could go into the deep specifics of how and why it happened, but I won't. I won't bore you with the details. Needless to say, 3 of them get killed. Now, in the book, the mom is resurrected, but she's not like fully human. She comes back as this kind of half undead ghoul who scours the land in search of everybody who's wronged the Stark family, who's like killed them or wronged them in some way. And it's a very big plot point in the books, but it's not at all referenced in the show. Like once Catelyn is killed in the Red Wedding, that's it. You never see or hear from her again. So there are differences from the books to the show. You know, the story is largely the same. Some details get left out. Some characters get hybridized, meaning like characters in the book that don't exist in the show, like their character arcs get folded into characters that are on the show. It's just an interesting dichotomy to see these two parallel roads of the same thing existing.
That's the same thing they did with True Blood.
And I never read the True Blood books, and I've never actually watched the True Blood show.
True Blood show is great till season 5, and then it just all goes to hell.
But
Actually,
I really feel
4.
like this, like Game of Thrones, is a once in a lifetime thing. I really can can you honestly sit here, and I'm not trying to be like, you know, snooty about it, but can you honestly sit here and try to remember a show that has crossed the cultural, you know, plateau? What's that?
MASH.
Yeah, I guess you.
God damn it! He proved my point wrong.
But like, there's like this show.
Modernly, no.
There is not a show in the modern, like the last show
Friends
that I can think of is like The Sopranos, maybe.
I mean, it did really well. I don't know if anything will do is Friends.
Nothing will cross like this show. Everybody and their mothers, even if they don't watch it, they know it. They know who's in it, and they know what it's about.
I don't think it's going to cross the threshold that like the last episode of Seinfeld crossed. I don't expect it to be in that realm.
Really, honestly, I kind of feel like
I'm
it might.
scared it's going to fall flat. There's been something about series finales that have just been kind of lackluster lately.
Dexter.
Sopranos. I mean, we could name shows all day long. How I Met Your Mother. True Blood, for that matter. No, like, there's a lot of shows that they kind of just fell flat, and I'm scared for that, where if you're watching this, and then that final episode, you're just like, oh, that's it? Because it could very well be that.
It could. But the way they've been building this show up, it's just, there's just no way. Like, I really have utmost confidence that they are going to stick the landing. Like, all the pieces are in place. The last 2 seasons really acted as a kind of clearing of the board of all the ancillary and secondary plot lines and storylines. They cleared everything off the table to focus on the 2 main conflicts, which are Cersei's war with Daenerys for the throne, and then everyone's war with the White Walkers and the Army of the Dead. Like, that is, we got 6 episodes left. And
is there only 6?
Gone. Huh?
Is there only 6 in this new season?
It's only 6. Yep.
Oh, boy.
The first 6 seasons were 10 episodes. The 7th season was only 7 episodes, and this final season's only going to be 6.
That makes me a little nervous. How long episodes, though? Are we talking longer than normal?
the first 2 episodes, I believe, are going to be like just above an hour, and the last 3 episodes are going to be an hour and a half.
So they're cramming almost 10 episodes into 6.
Yes, but the reason why I have the confidence is because of the last 2 seasons. Like I said, the last 2 seasons acted as this kind of palate cleanser. Like, because there were, going into season 6 and consequently season 7, there were a lot of like dangling threads, like a lot of extra politicking and extra shit that doesn't feed into either one of the main conflicts. Like, they were trying to get through. So I feel like the reason season 6 and season 7 exist was to kind of wipe the slate clean. Like, all right, let's wash the board. Let's get all this extra shit out of the way, and let's prep for season 8, because we know season 8's only going to be 6 episodes long. We know that we got to deal with the conflict with the White Walkers. We know that Cersei and Dany are going to have to battle each other for the throne at some point. Like, they know that these are what these people are watching for this show for at this point. So let's get rid of all the extra shit. And it was great. Like, some of the answers or some of the ways they cleared the board were not always satisfactory. And in fact, there is still like 1 or 2 side plots going into season 8 that I'm not totally pumped for. But the two main conflicts, seeing Jon Snow and Daenerys band together, which is a nice symmetry from the title, which the whole title of the whole saga is A Song of Ice and Fire. And Jon, who's from Winterfell, represents ice, and Daenerys, who is from is of Targaryen descent and from Dragonstone, obviously she's a fire, so it's kind of a nice symmetry there. Watching them band together to defeat this menace, and then Cersei Lannister still representing a threat down south in King's Landing, like those are the two conflicts people want to see. So like those are, in terms of those plot lines, I think they're going to just knock it out of the park. I have no doubt in my mind.
Let's hope for the fans they do, because if not, a revolt will happen.
I think this show has gotten to the point where there's no way it can fail.
Oh, you say that. And then
I say that now, and it's going to end up being the worst season.
Yeah, and then watch what happens. It's just like some random character that no one's met ends up at the throne. Like his name's Doug, and just
I got my theories of how I think the show is going to end, and George Martin has gone on record as saying it's going to be a bittersweet ending. He's like, it's not going to be a happy ending, but it's not going to be a totally downer ending either. So I have my theories on how it's going to end. But I don't think it's going to be a bad season. Like, I don't think it'll be the best season. Like, my favorite season of the entire show so far has been the 6th season. Like, that was front to back. Like, there's the 9th episode in the 6th season, which is called The Battle of the Bastards, which is Jon Snow, who's been recently revived, like, brought back from the dead, goes north to fight this character named Ramsay Bolton for control of the Stark home of Winterfell. And the whole episode is this epic battle sequence. And I would suggest, honestly, watching it out of context, just the visuals is the most majestic and beautiful battle sequence I've ever seen put to film. Just the visuals and the way they play with musical cues and camera angles, and just the level of artistry and the way they filmed that whole episode is just fucking bonkers.
Do you think? They do the Doctor Who special, like as a they occasionally do like the Christmas episode or a big premiere of Doctor Who on like the big screen.
Mm-hmm.
You think they should do that for this?
I think for the final episode.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. You think for the final episode or the premiere? Like you could do it for one of the two. But
I don't think it would be the premiere, because the rumor has it is the premiere is like not good. I mean, there's going to be like action. It's going to start off real fast, but I don't think it's going to be a very cinematic episode. I think, judging from what I've gleaned from the tea leaves, so to speak, of Reddit, it looks like the big like holy shit battle sequence, the Battle of Winterfell between Jon and Dany and the White Walkers, happens in the 3rd season. Third episode. And it's I was reading an interview that Nikolai Coster-Waldau, who plays Jaime Lannister on the show, did, and he said the battle sequence that they filmed for that 3rd episode took 54 or 55 days to film, just that battle sequence. So it's like the largest thing ever put to film, and that's only the 3rd episode. There's still 3 more episodes.
I hope for their sake this is not one of those, hey look, here's our load and we blow it early too situations, because that may be at that point.
It might be, but my theory is, all right, so if the Battle of Winterfell takes place in the 3rd episode, and that's like their big holy shit moment, that leaves the final 3 episodes to take care of the Cersei Lannister, Daenerys, who's going to get on the Iron Throne battle. I think the first 3 episodes will be about the White Walker conflict. We'll focus mainly on that. And then the final 3 will be about the political maneuvering of like, all right, we fought the White Walkers, whether they win or lose. The North has been decimated. They're reeling. How are they going to go up against Circe, who is, has been amassing her power this entire time while they've been fighting this undead menace, whether or not they win or lose. So there's so many different possibilities, there's so many roads they could go down. I'm so excited to see this, and like I said, I have to hit on it again. I'm not a big fantasy guy, but this kind of shit, right up my alley.
This is going to be I hope the fans enjoy. I hope it's a good season for the fans, because if not, this is going to go down as the biggest clusterfuck ever.
Well, there hasn't, I feel like, and I'm sure fans would correct me, but I feel like there hasn't been a truly bad season of the show. There have been seasons where fans haven't been as thrilled. But usually
this isn't
with a
Walking
TV show,
Dead stuff where there's just a terrible, the last 3 have been clustered bad.
Like with The Walking Dead, I'll use that as an example again. The first season is great. The first 5 seasons are varying degrees of good to great. And then 6 and 7 are generally thought of as the worst 2 seasons of the show ever. And then this last one that just finished a couple weeks ago kind of picks up the slack from the first half. So there hasn't been that divide. Each season has been generally been praised.
If people are hating the season, could it be because their favorites died?
I got to be honest with you. I'd be upset if some of my favorite characters didn't die.
Because I expect pretty much 90% of the cast to be killed in the game.
Well, there's this rumor floating around that George R.R. Martin wrote this timeline way back in the 90s where he outlined the entire saga from beginning to end. He knew how it was going to end all the way back then. And he had said, he was quoted as saying, only 5 of the main characters survived through to the end of the story. Now, honestly, that probably has changed between then and now. Absolutely.
But let's just go from
the TV version.
Well, I was going to say, let's go for that just for in general as the point. Let's look at that. If that's true, there's not going to be a lot of people left.
No, there isn't. I really feel like this season is going to be whereas past seasons have had single episodes that have just devastated you, like the Red Wedding, there was an episode in the I believe it was the 5th season. Was it the 4th season? I'm not sure. It's all kind of a blur because I watched it all real fast recently, where a little girl, I don't want to get into specifics because you're going to get lost if I mention names and plots and shit, but this little girl gets burned at the stake. This little 9-year-old girl gets burned at the stake. And it is one of the most heart-wrenching moments in the show. Now, if you watch it in context of what's happened, if you just watch it, it's a shocking moment. But the beauty, and that's the kind of, to circle back kind of, the beauty of the show is you get so invested in these characters that those moments where the Red Wedding takes place or this poor girl gets killed, they hit you like a sack of bricks to the dick because you get so invested in these characters and their lives, and you get your favorites, and you want to see someone make it to the end, other ones you can't wait to see die. Game of Thrones is their big thing that they've done brilliantly is they have not largely played to tropes of the hero tropes. There's no character that's safe that is going to die or make it to the end. Jon Snow, for example, who is everybody's favorite character, gets stabbed to death at the end of season 5, and that was one of the
I remember when that happened.
My wife was telling me, we weren't together at the time, we hadn't met yet, but she was telling me when she watched it, she was bawling her eyes out. And at first I kind of made fun of her a little bit, but then I walked that back because, you get invested with these characters. You spend that many years with someone, following their journey and wanting to see them succeed because you're invested in that character. It hits you when they die. Like when Spider-Man died in Infinity War. You didn't spend a lot of time with that character, but that emotion, that relationship between him and Tony was so real when he's crying and he's turning to dust and you can see Tony is very visibly upset. That fucking hits you, man.
Would you like to know my response to that?
Uh-oh.
It didn't actually hit me at all. And I think it's because I know there's a sequel. And it just kind of was all right.
Well, I got my theories about that, but I'll save that for our MCU.
Yeah,
episode.
I never I have emotions towards Carrie. Like I cry during like 60% of The Office, but mostly because it's like, hey, this is more relatable than fighting a White Walker. So I've tried getting into Game of Thrones. I've watched the first season 4 different times to try to do it. I just can't get into it.
You know what? I fully recognize that it's not for everyone, especially coming from a guy who's not particularly a fan of this kind of fantasy genre. But it hooked me. It totally hooked me. And after having pushed against it for as long as I did, I finally got into it, and I couldn't be more happy that I did, because I have my favorite characters. Like one of my favorite characters on the show is Jaime Lannister. And that's kind of a controversial thing, because if you follow his trajectory as a character from the first season to where he is now, in my opinion, he has the most complete story arc of any character on the show. He starts out in the first season as the most detestable human being imaginable. He fucks his sister.
I know.
He's a piece of shit when he first starts out. He's in this incestual relationship with his sister. He murders people left and right. He's the cockiest asshole on the planet. But then, as the seasons progress, he goes on this journey where, in the first season, he's just this cocky asshole who thinks he's the shit. And then in the second season, he gets abducted by the good guys and his hand gets cut off. And then he gets humbled because, he's known as like one of the best swordsmen in the entire realm, and now his fucking hand gets cut off. So there goes that. And then in the third season, the third through the seventh season, it kind of follows this journey of he's known as the Kingslayer. Like before the show starts, there's this guy named the Mad King, Aerys Targaryen, who keeps threatening to burn down the entire realm. He's like, I'm going to burn them all. So Jaime takes the sword and stabs him. And what's controversial about this is, in the lore of the show, he's a member of the Kingsguard. He sworn duty to protect the king, and he stabs this motherfucker to keep him from burning up the kingdom, from killing everybody. But it's still a stigma that follows him throughout the rest of his days on the show. Everyone refers to him as the Kingslayer, as if it's some dig at him as a person. So that point where he gets his hand chopped off and gets abducted by the Stark Bannermen, and then gets consequently freed and goes on the lam, and then eventually comes back home. His story arc from 3 all the way through 7 is this beautiful journey of him humbling himself, because he does some heinous ass shit. I'm not forgiving some of the shit he pulls, but he realizes that what he's done is fucked up, and then it becomes this journey to kind of regain that honor back, to kind of reclaim himself from the Kingslayer moniker, to the point where by the time we get to the end of season 7, he realizes that Cersei is this evil fucking maniacal bitch, and even though he's in love with her, if he has any chance of redemption, of trying to be that guy that can be honorable and be held to an oath, he has to leave her. He has to give her up. And he does that at the end of the 7th season. So the brilliant thing is, they take this character who is this detestable piece of shit in the first season, and by the time you get to the 7th season, he's your favorite character on the show.
He dies in the first episode of the next season.
Oh God, I fucking hope not. His is going to be the death that I think is going to hit me the most, because I like the journey that he's been on the most, because he worked so hard to become this hero again.
Oh, someone big dies in that first episode. It's gonna happen. They have
it's with 6 episodes. They got to start with a bang, man. They got to.
Every episode's gonna have a major death in it.
Absolutely, and at least one major death. But I get the feeling a lot of the main cast gets wiped out. So there's going to be probably multiple deaths per episode.
Yeah, which is going to be the hardest season of television for anybody to watch.
That, I think, is the kind of running joke with a lot of Thrones fans right now, is that they better keep a therapist on speed dial, because people are going to have a super fucking hard time getting through this season, even though it's only 6 episodes.
After every episode the next day, people calling from work to work sick, look, guys, I can't come in today. My favorite died. Yeah. I'm mourning the death of so-and-so.
I'm mourning the death of Jon Snow. Like, I can't come into work today.
That might actually happen. Somebody's going to do that now. Somebody's going to be like, I can't. And actually have, like, the letter wrote out and have it signed by somebody.
I'm not going to lie. I'm contemplating taking Sunday off of work just to stay home and watch Game of Thrones.
Nerd.
So, I'm super excited. It's going to be awesome. I'm thinking about doing like an article. Like I want to write something up for the site because why
don't you review each episode?
Yeah, that'd be a cool idea. Like I do like a quick, like maybe not as long as my normally 2,000 word articles are, but
make my
maybe
poor
I could
editor
just do like a short
pants.
write up for each episode because I really feel like this is going to be the cultural thing that people are going to be talking about for a while, and I feel like there's a lot of our fans or a lot of our fans of our site and the work that we do on the site that are also Game of Thrones fans.
Oh, I thought about being a complete asshole and doing a fake article. I went down. What now?
I love you, but do not toy with Game of Thrones fans.
I did this a few years ago. Okay, so one night, and this kind of ties in together, during WrestleMania, like a few years ago, not Game of Thrones, but Walking Dead had its season finale on the same night WrestleMania was going on.
Oof.
And I'm tweeting about WrestleMania, and I just kind of slipped in the character that, I can't think of his name now, the Arrow, Daryl. Is it Daryl Dixon? I said, oh my God, Dixon, yeah. I can't believe Daryl died.
Oh.
Hashtag, what the fuck, Walking Dead. And I was just inundated with going, I can't believe you would spoil that on the internet, blah, blah, blah. And then
he's like the fan favorite on that show, too, so you really must have pissed off a lot of people.
And then I'm just like, well, I can tell you guys don't watch the show. And because I'm like, they're not going to kill Daryl off until the series finale. Come on.
Well, the thing about him is he's not even in the comics.
Right. That's why they're not going to kill him until the last episode.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
And I will tell you this now. Everyone will die in that show.
There's no... You see, that's why it's another reason why Game of Thrones has eclipsed The Walking Dead. The Game of Thrones, when it first debuted, there was an end game. Like we didn't know what it was going to be, but it wasn't like the show that just started and could run forever. Like they had an end game. They knew what they were working towards. It was just a matter of getting there.
Timeline. There's a timeline with that show where Walking Dead does not have, like, it should have a timeline.
Well, it doesn't because it's like the story is still ongoing in the actual comics. So there's no end in sight. Like there's like, how do you even wrap up? The only way you can maybe wrap up that story
is to kill everybody.
What?
It's to kill everybody.
Or if you find a plague or a cure for the undead, but at this point it doesn't matter because 90% of the world is dead.
Yeah.
So The Walking Dead, while this last season kind of picked up in terms of quality, I think a lot of people are jumping ship because it's just like there's no end to it. Every season there's a new human threat. Every season the zombies take an even more backseat, to everything else that's going on. There's no end game in sight. Like, it's just like there's no clear plan in place. Like, they're not going from point A to point B. They're just kind of flying by the seat of their pants. Whereas Game of Thrones, even though they're based on the books, the last two seasons, season 6 and season 7,
they still knew where they were going.
They're even though they're off book because George Martin hasn't written those last two books yet, they still have a clear plan. Like, all right, this is the end we want to hit. This is what we know where we're going. So let's build towards that. Whereas The Walking Dead's like, fuck it, do whatever you want.
Which is just loosely based on the comics.
Very loosely. Like, even more loosely based on the comics than Thrones is on the books.
Which I do enjoy the character Negan, though. Not going to lie about it.
Negan is awesome, and I don't know if it's just because it's Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
But just that character, like, that's probably the only that to me, that has been the saving grace character to that show. Because if it wasn't for Negan, that show's dead.
Well, you're going to be in for a rude awakening when you find out what they got planned for him next season.
They're probably going to kill him.
No, they're not. But yeah, Game of Thrones is super fun. I like I said, I'm so fucking excited. Like, I'm breaking my rule of not deep diving into fan theories and such.
Because fan theories can be fun. Jesus,
they can be fun, and a lot of these are very fun to read. And, like, most of them are ludicrous and like are not a chance in hell going to happen.
Kaboom, baby, rub it on your nipples. You can call me ludicrous. You can. Oh, not that kind of ludicrous. Yep. Twice now. He's rendered me completely speechless. So, yeah, Game of Thrones, check it out. It's going to be super awesome. Final 6 episodes. I will, that's a good idea. You know what? I'm going to do a little write-up for each episode, kind of do a little recap. I feel like now would be a good time to kind of strike while the iron's hot, especially since the spotlight is kind of on Game of Thrones right now. So is it time to switch topics?
Yes. Now we switch to something you're a little bit.
Well, I mean, there's a show about wrestling on this on TBK Radio and TBKMagazine.com, and I gotta tell you, man, you saying that you watched Wrestlemania this year just baffles the shit out of me. Because one, it was fucking long, and two,
well, let me preface this real quick.
Did you watch it over the span of like 2.5 days?
No, I skipped around a little bit.
Which is really sad, because this year was really good.
And I didn't skip the matches themselves. I just kind of skipped a lot of the extra crap
Which
that
really
happened
wasn't,
around the matches.
I was going to say, there really wasn't a lot of filler this year as compared to most. I will say that, okay, so let's start. Where do you want to begin? Because one, I feel like there's some certain things we got to discuss.
I think, and let me just start by saying, I think my favorite moment of the whole show, of the entire show, was Triple H's entrance.
Oh, doing the
like the Mad Max kind of post-apocalyptic thing. That's like, I never really liked Triple H.
Oh, his entrances the last 5 years have been unfucking believable good.
I was never a fan of his back in the day when I was a fan of wrestling, only because he was in constant conflict with my favorite wrestler, The Rock. So I kind of was designed to hate his character. But like when I saw that entrance, I was like, "Oh my god, this is awesome!"
Batista had this really cool entrance where he comes out and had like these bodyguards and stuff, and then Trips getting in the ring, which is funny as shit. Which is probably my favorite meme to come out of WrestleMania is the Avenge the Fallen, and it's and it's just Batista falling over the rope. But no, the Triple H entrance, he does a huge movie entrance like the last few years. He did Terminator a few years ago. Last year was something with motorcycles. Like, he's done some really cool entrances every year.
I like my favorite Triple H entrance of all time. I think it was WrestleMania 17 or 18 when Motorhead comes out on stage and plays the song.
18.
Was it 18?
Yeah.
That was like, because I liked that version of his song the most. So it was just kind of cool to see him come out to that. But that was probably, of everything that happened, my favorite moment of
I'm still disappointed they didn't do
show.
Escape from New York. Like, that would have been...
That would have been cool.
Would that not have been perfect, though? Because, I mean, they're in New York. New Jersey. But, come on, Escape from New York would have made perfect sense.
That would have been cool. I'll give you that one. I hadn't even thought of that. You know what? Honestly, I didn't even realize they were like in New York until halfway through the show.
Which that venue, a lot of people were pissed they were hit with a blinding light while watching it in the crowd. There's nice photos of that.
What was your favorite moment from the show?
From the whole show? Besides Kofi Kingston winning the WWE Championship, there's a long story there. A very historic
understand
moment.
That he, like, I kind of read up a little bit on the history of how, like, McMahon was kind of keeping him under his boot heel, so to speak.
The actual story, yeah. Which is a great story, by the way. Wonderful story.
But it's just, I jumped off of WWE before Kofi Kingston, so like it was cool to see like a man of, African descent.
Okay, that's where we were getting at. He is the first black WWE champion. Mm-hmm. That's not The Rock, and I don't 100%. He was born in Ghana, so he's actually African descent, the first wrestler to ever hold it.
Right.
So it's this huge moment. Then on top of that, you have this story of him being always this guy who's putting on, those guys that show up at work every day and you hate them because they always do a good job, but at least they work there.
Yeah.
He's that guy.
Okay.
Because he comes in every day, he did his thing, he would show up, do a huge show, and then he would never get his reward. And because someone getting injured, he ended up in the spot he's in.
And I feel like I'm happy for him, but outside of the socio-political connotations of a black man winning one of the most prestigious titles in all of wrestling, it didn't have an impact on me because I don't have any.
You weren't watching.
I was talking about with Game of Thrones, like that affects me because I have a history with those characters. I didn't have a history. I wasn't tied to him at all, so it just didn't I was happy for him.
It was a really cool moment. It was such a cool moment. And then two, let's throw out this. The other moment. I have to tell you, all weekend long, I was watching WrestleMania, which is 7.5 hours. But when you get to that final match with all three women, and that's a breaking of a barrier. But I'm not the biggest Ronda Rousey in wrestling fan, but when she came out to actually Joan Jett playing her to the ring.
Dude, that was awesome. That was like my second favorite moment.
Like you can see her having a fan moment when she you can see the smile on her face when she walks out and just sees Joan Jett.
Is Bad Reputation Ronda Rousey's entrance music?
Yeah.
That's her actual
song? Yeah. That was what it was in MMA too.
Okay.
And WWE bought the rights. Yeah, that was awesome. That was pretty fucking cool.
Now, to get into, I guess to go to the next thing, the thing that I wasn't particularly wowed by, honestly, were most of the matches themselves. Some of the matches were good.
Okay. I agree. The Kofi Kingston Daniel Bryan match was the best match of the show.
That was good.
That was a really good match.
My least favorite match of the entire night was Kurt Angle versus
Baron Corbin. No, that match sucked. You're good on that.
That match sucked. I didn't like the one with Miz versus Shane.
See, I have to disagree. That was actually fun to watch.
It was goofy, but the end was so dumb.
Okay, so to explain this to non-wrestling fans, the end of it, the Miz suplexes Shane from where the cameras are. In MetLife Stadium. So they're on trusses. They're on scaffolding and shit. And they suplex onto a breakable thing. And Shane McMahon ended up on top, which is if you land on a suplex, your head's going to be on top of the person.
Right.
So
and you end up getting the pinfall.
Yeah, which makes sense. And I'm like, okay, that's actually a really, that keeps the feud going, which it shouldn't, but that kept it going. But Miz's dad fucking putting up his fist was the greatest thing, and that's become a meme.
I thought that was cool. I mean, the match itself was okay. I just the ending of it, I thought it was oh, come on. I thought it was cool because I thought the Miz suplexing Shane off of that apparatus, if you will, was a nice callback to, you remember when Shane dropped the elbow off the Titantron? Yeah,
no, I thought that's what was going to happen because that board, the video monitor they had at WrestleMania was thick, and I was like, he's going to jump off the fucking top of that, isn't he? Because Shane does stupid stuff all the time. That bump. And
Shane looks so, different from what I remember.
Shane looks like his dad. 100%.
He looks so much like Vince. It's crazy.
But at that moment where Miz hits Shane with the TV monitor and Shane does the flip over and lands on that golf cart, and then you just hear his body go on the concrete. You're you're stupid. Fuck that shot. Fuck that. But kudos to him for taking those. The dude's nuts.
Kudos to Shane for being able to pull out of the stops and entertain us and whatnot. But I just I felt a general sense of the matches were just
no, they were. You're right. No, everything was kind of on a scale of just average, with the exception of Kofi Daniel, because that was actually a really good match. And two, when you're sitting at home and you know the story and you follow it, you're just on the edge of your seat going, is he actually going to win?
Now, I read an article online about Raw the next night.
Oh, God.
Is it true that Kofi is going to fight Rollins to unify the belts?
They did the match on Raw, and then someone interfered, and they turned it into a tag match, and they might do it later on in the future. I don't know.
Okay.
I will say the ending of WrestleMania, the ending of the women's match was such a letdown because I'm a huge...
Wasn't there some controversy to
that? Ronda broke her hand in the match.
Ouch.
by legit throwing a punch on Becky, and didn't do anything apparently. And Ronda's shoulder should have been down for a 3, and she couldn't get down for some reason.
Okay.
But it does set up a possible rematch next year between Becky and Ronda, which is a match everybody wants anyway.
Yeah, because I thought when I was watching it, I'm like, wait a minute, she's not down all the way. But at least it didn't look like her shoulder was down on the mat. It wasn't. And it looked like the referee didn't notice it or something. And then I find out the next day that there's this like big controversy online that Becky Lynch didn't actually get the 3 count, that Ronda's shoulders were never actually down.
Well, her shoulders were down for 2 of the 3. So, okay. But it wasn't the one. It was like her shoulder was up for the 1 count out of all the counts to fucking fuck up. Like, come on. But Charlotte's entrance with the helicopter ties back to her dad entering the Great American Bash 1985 on a helicopter.
Now, Charlotte Flair is Ric Flair's daughter,
yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was tremendous. There's just little things but having the fans' favorites win in the matches that mattered, I think actually overshadowed how average the matches were.
I noticed that most of the titles changed hands, with the exception of, I think, like 1 or 2 of them.
Let's see. The women's titles changed hands. The Universal title changed hands. The WWE title changed hands. The Raw tag titles changed hands. The SmackDown didn't, but they did on SmackDown last night.
The Intercontinental belt didn't change.
Yeah,
like Samoa Joe was still the champion.
Oh, U.S. Yeah, it was U.S. Yeah, Joe retained. But that's because Rey Mysterio actually hurt his ankle on Monday, and he couldn't actually go. So
I can't believe he's still wrestling. He feels like he's getting up there.
Dude, I'm going to... You know what? All In 2 is happening in Chicago this year again. Mm-hmm. And if you're free on Labor Day weekend, I might just get you a ticket and have you come with us.
I'll go. Fuck it.
Because last year was a hoot. It'd be interesting to start chants in our section. No, I thought as a whole, this is a really good WrestleMania. Mm-hmm. I mean, if there's anything you need to know, I am the guy to tell you. But
I just like, I don't know. The reason why, I mean, the last match that I watched was when the last time that Austin and Rocky fought each other at WrestleMania. And
WrestleMania 19.
And when Rocky finally beat him at WrestleMania.
Yep.
That's the last full-time. That's the last moment I was like a full-time wrestling fan.
Wow, 2003.
That was like the last. Huh?
It was in 2003.
Yeah. And that was kind of like both of their last matches. Like Rock kind of just stopped being a full-time wrestler.
Yeah, he came across like every so often you'll see The Rock, and then
like I picked up again when he fought Cena at WrestleMania.
By the way,
I watched that match.
Speaking of Cena, did you watch that?
The Doctor of Thugonomics?
Yeah, did you I think there was a lot of people who were super excited to see rap gimmick Cena for one night.
I liked Cena when he was a villain, so I kind of hope this is an indication of him going back to that. And
his crazy dad hair. You have to see that.
Now, is he still a full-time wrestler,
No.
or is he down to part-time?
He's down to part.
Okay.
He hadn't been around for almost 6 or 8 months now.
Okay.
It's been a while since Cena's been there. And I mean, that's
so
fun.
who's the big face of the company right now? Is it Kofi?
Jesus. Becky?
Really?
Yeah, no, the highest merch seller right now in the company is Becky Lynch.
Really?
The man.
I guess that explains why she was in the main event.
That's why she is the man.
So Becky's like the big face of the company right
Becky
now.
is the face of the company right now.
Interesting.
There's something you didn't think you'd ever hear in wrestling, right?
No, like the last person I remember being the big face of the company was Daniel Bryan.
Yeah, that was a few years ago. Roman Reigns is a huge seller. Outside that, but the New Day sells a lot of merch. But then that's like your top 3 usually.
Now, does who's the third guy from There's Seth Rollins. There's Roman Reigns, and who's the third one?
Dean Ambrose, and he just left the company actually.
That was going to be my question. Is Dean Ambrose still around? Because I remember kind of liking him a lot.
He is leaving the company for a hiatus. That was my guess. He might be wrestling in the new company. He might be wrestling in AEW. He may go back to WWE. No one really knows what he's doing.
You know, when I was watching him, the few times that I watched him, he reminded me. Do you remember Raven?
Oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah.
He kind of reminded. He looked at least a little bit like maybe a new style, like a new school kind of Raven.
There is a great video out there of Dean Ambrose and Mick Foley cutting promos on each other after an Access event at WrestleMania like 5 years ago. It is fan-freaking-tastic because it's just both of them being dicks to each other, trying to get a match happen between the two on WWE programming.
Interesting.
Before Dean was even called up.
Now, I'll always remember, the wrestling will have a special place in my heart because it was such a big part of my childhood. So, I don't mean to sound like I'm shitting on it. I'm not. I'm absolutely not. But it's just, what it was back then is just not what it is right now, I feel like.
What era are you talking about before I go any further? Because there's two different ways you could look at that. Because, there's the Hogan era and then there's the Attitude Era. I'm
talking about the Attitude Era.
Okay, so I've got a train. I'm gonna be the wrestling asshole, and you for anybody who listens to SNS knows I've said this numerous times. I actually prefer the in-ring product now. There's better character development then, but it's so hard to go back and watch then now.
Why do you say that?
Mae Young gave birth to a fucking hand. You could go back and watch all of the old stuff and you're like, nope, I can't do this.
I don't know. I just feel like the storylines back in the day were so much better.
I think stories were better told. There's a reason why I think a lot of people are excited for AEW, which is All Elite Wrestling for anybody who does not know, which is ran by the same guys who did All In. Everybody's excited for that to be a thing.
Why is that?
Because something new might happen. They might do better stories. It might be better stuff. And I mean, they did get a big name from the WWE. So to be part of their company when they launch next month. And that's Chris Jericho.
Is there Jericho?
Yeah.
I'll never forget Jericho's first introduction into the WWF fold.
Oh,
and when he was cutting a promo with The Rock.
The Rock made him look like such a putz.
Oh my! But The Rock made everybody look like a putz. Come on.
But Jericho's one of the only few guys that could hang with him.
Yeah, their promos together. I feel like The Rock, hands down, cut the best promos out of anybody.
I think The Rock is number 2 all time in promos.
Who would you put number 1?
Dusty Rhodes.
Okay.
If you go back and listen to the Hard Times promo or any of the 80s promos from Dusty, you're going to be like, yeah, okay, Dusty Rhodes is a much better guy to talk. But that's then in this, and The Rock's the best of the 90s.
But going back to the Attitude Era, there's so many classic in the annals of wrestling history storylines. Do you remember the big deal about Austin getting run over by the car and that year-long story of who fucking did it?
I did it for The Rock. I did it for the people.
And fucking Rikishi did it, and then Austin comes back, but then in WrestleMania 17 is the year that Austin turns heel and sides with Vince McMahon.
The worst decision ever made in wrestling.
I don't know, man. I liked it because, one, it put the role reversal between The Rock and Austin, and 2, it turned Austin into this psychopath character almost.
Do you know Austin says if he could go back in time, he would never do it?
Yeah, I don't doubt it.
That's one of those, I wouldn't want to turn, you're the face of the company. Everybody knows who Stone Cold Steve Austin is. I remember having a shirt that cursed because of Austin and getting in trouble for it at school. Home Shopping Network used to do these t-shirts for WWE, and they had a talking t-shirt. And my mom ordered it, and every time you touched the skull, it would say something. And one of the skulls said, Austin 316 says, I just whipped your ass. And I didn't realize the talking mechanism was on at school one day.
Oh, shit.
And the next thing I know, it's just give me a hell yeah. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Oh, fuck. Luckily, there's 6 Austin t-shirts in the class.
Whew.
So it was kind of going who has the shirt that talks, and no one would raise their hand. So none of us got in trouble, but it came very close. Like, nobody knew who had the talking shirt until after class, and I was like, that was me.
Whew.
Needless to say, I took the talking mechanism out of the shirt at that moment.
Like, the rivalry between him and the corporation produced some of the best segments I've ever seen in wrestling. Like that episode of Raw when he rolls into
With
the arena
beer
with
truck?
the beer truck.
Fuck
and he just
yes.
starts dousing. Oh my god! Like the rivalry between him and Vince and The Rock is just.
You know, I'm going to send you a video. I'm going to send you something. I'm going to send you All In. I'm going to send you a link to watch All In.
Okay.
I want to take your take on that. Because they actually did something like that at All In, but one of their corporate sponsors was Cracker Barrel. And they actually got a barrel from Cracker Barrel and used it as a weapon. And when it happened, the entire crowd started chanting Donkey Kong. You gotta love smart. You gotta love smart crowds sometimes. Smart crowds are the best. God damn.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm thinking about signing up for the WWE network.
How did you watch WrestleMania?
I watched it online.
Not through the WWE network?
Nope. Don't ask how.
Oh god. You could get a free month if you sign up.
God bless the Fire Stick.
I could give you a code for like 3 months for 99 cents.
I'm thinking about it, and I would just watch it just to like watch all the classic matches.
Oh, I was watching WrestleMania 7 the other day. I mean, fuck. Like, I love watching the old stuff. Like, there are just days where I'm like, there's nothing on TV. Guess what I'm going to put on? Old wrestling. Like, fuck.
Like, I wanted to watch, I couldn't find a good copy of it online. I wanted to watch the WrestleMania 13 match between Bret Hart and Steve Austin.
Oh, the double turn. That's so fucking good.
Yeah.
Okay, did you see what happened with Bret Hart this weekend?
Oh, didn't he get, like, tackled by a fan?
Okay, so I'm watching the WWE Hall of Fame. And that's a cool moment for anybody who's a wrestling fan, like when they tell the stories and stuff. And Brett's standing up there talking about Jim Neidhart, who just passed away, his former tag partner. And all of a sudden, this dude in a Rasta hat, Bear just barrages the ring and tackles Brett, a 60-some-year-old individual who's had a stroke and can barely walk. This numbfuck decides to tackle him.
Now, was this a gimmick or was this like
no?
a
This
real
is real.
thing?
This is a real guy. He was arrested and says he thought it was his time to do something.
Do what?
That's what I said. He's a former MMA or like he's an amateur MMA fighter from Nebraska.
God, Jesus Christ! Fucking MMA fighters are psychopaths. Sorry, you can edit that out.
Well, no. I'm fine with that because the guy who actually so the first person in the ring is Ronda Rousey's husband, who is an MMA fighter.
Who's she married to?
Travis Brown.
I have no idea who that is.
So he gets everybody gets on top of him and starts beating him and stuff. So they've got him, like security has him and some of the wrestlers has him. Here comes Dash Wilder of the Revival. Dash Wilder of the Revival comes around the ring and comes walking up beside of him. And Dash Wilder takes a right hand right to this dude's face, just poof, and knocks him the fuck out. Like, you could see him, like, you know, when people are carrying and, like, the dude's resisting and all that, and he's fighting to try to get out of it. Mm-hmm. You've seen that numerous times. When Dash Wilder hits him, he just starts getting, he dead weights. So you know he just got knocked the fuck out. And he's just being drug at that point. Fan-fucking-tastic. The next night at WrestleMania, during the pre-show, when the Revival has their match, Corey Graves on commentary goes, "Man, you wouldn't want to piss off the heavy hand of Dash Wilder." And I'm like, yes.
You know what really bores me about wrestling is, like, and this specifically talks to the match between Seth Rollins and
Brock Lesnar.
I hate matches where dudes are like dominating for almost the entirety of the match, and then the other dude kind of mounts a defense for a little bit, but then starts getting his ass handed to him again for the rest of the majority of the match. and then kind of just comes through at the end and gets the victory.
He did hit him in the dick. Let's just go. He did in that shot.
He hit him in the dick. We're all about dick hitting on this show.
The official fight move of the Brodie and Richard show is a dick punch. Just
like I just that match was almost the most boring, if not for the Kurt Angle match of the entire night, because it just felt like Brock Lesnar was just owning him for most of the match, and like he'd get a few licks here and there, and then Brock would come back and just beat him to shit, and then after he gets the dick punch, and then it's just kind of...
So, wrestling fans hate Brock Lesnar.
I can see why. He's not a very entertaining wrestler.
Well, he's never there, and they made him champion. So, he's only had like 6 title defenses in the last year and a half.
So, he's not a full-time wrestler either?
No.
So, why the fuck does he have the title?
That's what everyone else asked, too. And then, finally, they just took the championship off of him on Sunday. And that changed, like... That's why the reaction was as big as it was.
Okay. Like, I mean, Seth Rollins seems like a cool guy and everything.
Seth Rollins last year came out to like a White Walker at WrestleMania.
All right, Seth Rollins is now my favorite wrestler.
And the year before, he took the nickname of Kingslayer.
I am now Seth Rollins' biggest fan.
Yeah, I was gonna say, he does a lot of like Game of Thrones. This year it was Beast Slayer, but
and there was another match. Oh God.
There was a lot of matches. There was a lot of
Well, there was another one that I thought was particularly boring. I can't remember. Oh, God. It was... What is his name? He's from Illinois, I think.
That could be anybody. God. Thank you for...
Oh, he's like... He's got long hair and a beard. He wears... Like, he doesn't wear trunks. He wears pants. It's like a lot of blue in his outfit. Oh, God. What's his name?
That helps.
AJ Styles.
Oh, he's from Georgia.
Is he?
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought he's from Chicago.
No, he wore gold and black on that night too, so that tells me a lot.
His match was boring as fuck.
It was not the best. It wasn't the worst match. It wasn't the best match. Like it kind of becomes one of those situations where everything was just kind of on a level. Like nothing.
As long as it wasn't like worse than the match before it.
Yeah, that's my only thing. Like if I know there's gonna like every show is gonna have something bad. Like every show, like even TV shows have a bad fucking episode of a season.
Right.
Like you can. That's how I look at wrestling. Like every show is gonna have that match where you're just like, ugh. For me, that match was Kurt Angle and Baron Corbin. Yeah,
that was definitely the worst one of the bunch. That was kind of like, do you remember when Goldberg got brought into the WWF fold and he fought Brock Lesnar that year? That was like. I think that is hands down the worst WrestleMania match of all time.
You know, that's a lot of people. You wanted some fun for fans, by the way. That's fun to watch just for the fan reaction.
Yeah. Like, I remember, like, following WCW back in the day and being a big Goldberg fan because, you know, he went on that winning streak and everything.
Of course
and then
you were a Goldberg fan.
I liked Goldberg. I mean, whatever. I was predictable. I don't give a fuck.
You kind of let's see. The vibe you give me is that if you were a fan of WCW, I feel like you're more of a Disco Inferno fan.
I love Disco Inferno. He's so stupid.
Disco Fever.
Oh man, you know who I was always rooting for Disco to fight, even though it was a cross promotional thing, it would never happen. I always wanted to see him fight Val Venus.
That's like the skeeziest match that would ever happen in wrestling.
I know. And then you have the Godfather as the referee.
Come aboard the Ho train. My God.
Or no. I wouldn't even make it the Godfather of the Pimp Train. I'd make him of the the
Right to Censor Godfather, the Good
Father.
Father.
The Right to Censor Godfather.
My God.
There you go.
So fun story. I actually got a girlfriend in school in junior high doing a Val Venus impression.
Yeah.
Like she was a huge Val Venus fan. I'm like, okay, so I met a girl who was a wrestling fan. That alone's kind of a shocker. And then she talks about how much she enjoyed Val Venus. And I went, I can do an impression of Val Venus. I don't know
if you like Val Venus, then you should see this Val Venus.
Oh my God. So I did the impression and she's like, it was at a high school, it was at a dance. And then the rest of the day, we just danced together and went on a few dates. Yep. All because
after you did the Val Venus impersonation, did the floor get really like slippery?
Yeah, kind of.
Underneath her?
No. She just kind of I don't know how to explain this. You know when you sing to I don't think
she just got wet in the pantaloons immediately.
Well, she swooned. She swooned hard. I don't know how to explain it. Like she just kind of melted. I went, okay, so
melted all right.
Out of all the wrestlers in the world that you could be a fan of, Val Venus. Really?
I remember one of my favorite. Again, this will just tie into The Rock because a lot of my favorite matches involve him. Didn't he do? And I might be remembering this wrong, so you'll probably correct me.
That's what I did.
Didn't Val Venus do a strap match with The Rock?
No, I don't know about that.
Or was that Billy Gunn?
There was a Kiss My Ass match with Billy Gunn.
I remember the Kiss My Ass match because didn't
Billy Gunn brought out like a fat girl? Yeah.
But didn't Rock end up burying his face in the fat girl's ass at the end of the match?
Rock buried Billy Gunn's face into.
But I swear to God, there was a Val Venus strap match on Raw.
That's probably true. Well, okay, so there's a lot of Raw that's kind of just a blur to me at some points. There's a lot of wrestling that I have watched. A lot.
Yeah, no, I am. I could just sit here honestly and go through all my favorite moments, but ultimately, to circle back to what we were originally talking about, WrestleMania 35 was far from the best WrestleMania that I had ever seen, but I didn't really hold that against it because I just wasn't really familiar with 90% of the wrestlers.
I will say this: it was interesting to see your favorites go over to win. That doesn't happen very often.
That was another thing. Back in the day when I was watching wrestling, almost none of my favorite wrestlers won anything. Rocky was always getting his ass kicked at the end of the match.
Yeah, but Rock was usually a heel 90% of the time.
But even so, for example, WrestleMania 2000 when there was the Fatal 4-Way.
Oh God, that's the first time. By the way, WrestleMania 2000, the first time a heel ever wins in the main event at a WrestleMania. First time.
The moment of that show isn't even Triple H winning the belt. It's when Rock came back and fucking rock bottomed every single member of the McMahon family.
Well, yeah, no, poor. By the way, you want to talk about someone who could not take a move? It's Linda. Jesus.
They don't still put her on TV, do they?
No. Occasionally. No, she actually just she quit Trump's cabinet.
I forgot she was a part of Trump's cabinet.
Okay, so I'm not political. I don't talk politics at all on anything. But there's one thing that can be said. Did you hear anything bad about Small Business Administration during the Trump administration so far?
No.
I think that's because Linda just knew how to stay out of the fucking spotlight.
After years and years of being the matriarch of the
WWE? Yeah, no shit. She's the only one you never heard a bad story about.
That's true. That's a good point.
I just want to point that out. So, that kind of reflects well on WWE at the same time. So, hey.
But, yeah, I mean, it was good. I was entertained. It wasn't the best. It wasn't the worst.
I'm going to send you All In. I want to know your opinion of All In.
Yeah, send it to me. I'll watch it.
I'm going to send you the pre-show, too. You have to watch the pre-show because there's 2 matches on it.
Yeah, I'm always down to watch some wrestling. It's entertaining. It's just the direction the company went in recent years. Just the characters that they're coming up with, they're just not memorable.
I will tell you something else too. If you get the WWE Network, watch NXT Takeover.
The what?
If you get the WWE Network, watch NXT Takeover New York. They're developmental, and I put that in quotes because it's not really developmental anymore. But they had 5 matches on the show, went 3 hours and 6 minutes. Probably the best show of the weekend.
Okay, I'm giving it a shot.
From all companies. Oh, let me tell you some other stuff with wrestling, since we're going to talk about this. One, there's a wrestler who flips people with his penis.
What?
His name is Joey Ryan. I'm going to send you video. Yeah. Joey Ryan is this guy who dick flips people. He's the official wrestler of porn, not Pornhub, the other one, YouPorn. He's the official pro wrestler of YouPorn.
And he wrestles in the WWE?
No. Fuck no. But he put on a show this weekend called Joey Ryan's Penis Party.
Oh my God.
There's a spot where there's 2 guys just butt flapping each other, just hitting each other's asses against each other, naked ass, almost naked asses against each other. And then there's another one where they had a bunch of people come out dressed as tampons. And then there was a bunch of people dressed as penises, which also happens at All In. And then, shit, man. Trying to explain this in a straight face is great. They also did a human centipede spot.
Oh, my God.
Then there's another wrestler who puts on his own shows during WrestleMania weekend who's named Joey Janela. And this guy put on a show with a main event called the Clusterfuck. Was
it a clusterfuck?
It's a Royal Rumble style match, but and just random intervals people come out. So like you could get someone, and then the next person will come out for 4 minutes, and then the next person will come out 2 seconds later. It's kind of fun. They had a match between the Invisible Man and his brother.
This sounds like the most batshit insane thing ever.
And the only way you could see it is if the referee had to put on his special glasses to see the Invisible Man and the brother. But a table broke during that match. Let that sink in.
Okay. Wait, so wait a minute.
Yep.
So, what? Hold on a second.
I'm sending you a link to that,
I
too.
think my brain broke a little bit with that.
I'm sending you links to all of these.
Please do, because this... How does it...
Yep.
What?
Wrestling. that's my go-to now. Wrestling. And then they had there was another show that did a drinking match, a dodgeball competition, and a 1 minute time limit match.
This sounds like the Twin Peaks of wrestling.
Oh no, it is. No. It WrestleMania weekend lends to some of the weirdest shows you will ever see that's not WWE. And it's so worth to watch them all.
I'm going to have to watch all of these now.
I'm going to send you links. Like, I'm not going I don't have the links to the Penis Party shows because I don't have those bought yet. But I will send you links to like clips from the Penis Party. So you can understand. I might just send you like a best of Joey Ryan video. Just so you can understand Joey Ryan.
The title of this episode should be The Day Brodie Partook in the Penis Party.
The one about the penis party. That's the actual...
God damn. That's funny.
Wrestling's great, man. There's just some weird shit sometimes.
So... Anything else you want to talk about?
That pretty much sums it up. I thought it would be good to talk about the non-WWE stuff, too, because I forgot that you don't know about that yet.
Yeah, I'm not really, like I said, honestly, if Google hadn't blown up my phone about WrestleMania, I wouldn't have even watched it, but
so it was just... Really quick, at All In, the match with the barrel ends with Joey Ryan coming back from the dead, being flanked by penis druids. Because a dude had killed a man and his boots were talking to him.
Well, that's going to do it for the Brodie and Richard show.
I'm sending you a link just to that match. I just want an opinion of that.
I mean, I feel like the independent circuit or All In or whatever is going to be the place where maybe I jump back in because the WWE is just
all elite, man. All elite.
Like I said, I wouldn't have even watched WrestleMania had Google not like fucking gang raped my phone with notifications.
Oh, yeah, I'm sending you that. After this episode, I'm going to send you a link to the YouTube video of the match from All In. And I want to know your opinion.
I will get on that right away.
All right, man. I think that does wrap up this episode.
Anything else you want to add before we call it quits?
Foreman cookies.
Oh, God, I just farted. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the Brodie and Richard show. Thank you guys so much for coming on this journey of buttfuckery with us.
That's the best way to explain it.
Next show, we're definitely going to do the MCU since it'll be a little bit closer to when Endgame comes out.
I'm in.
Is there anything you want to plug at the end here?
Don't forget to visit the store, Shop TBK. If you want to give us $1 on Patreon, patreon.com/TBK Magazine, do so. If you don't want to, we understand that too. It just means
definitely go hit up the Patreon because there's going to be all sorts of cool shit coming your way.
It just means we have to snort coke off a penis to make money. So,
well, it looks like Joey Ryan ain't going to have any problem doing that.
Joey Ryan's awesome. Like, I think you're going to enjoy some Joey Ryan. That's all I'm going to say.
I am definitely going to watch that as soon as we're done here. But thank you for joining me, my friend. It's been a fun episode. And I look forward to doing this again. And thank you guys for listening. It's been a blast.
We will see you guys next time.
We will see you next time. Same buttfuck time, same buttfuck channel.